Hello beautiful people, I'm Red and today I'm going to go over my 11.1 Disc Priest Mythic Plus guide. So I have a 3600 rating right now, a little more than half 18s and some 17s. So for stat prio, haste to some percentage, then crit mastery. So that's what I'm going to recommend. I like personally roughly about 30% haste. I feel like I can react fast enough to do everything at 30% haste, and at 25% I feel like I'm a little sluggish, so I just prefer to have a little more haste. So the tier set, when you apply a Power Word Shield to a target and it gets absorbed, it gives insurance, and all the healers have the same tier set. So when the target drops below 40%, insurance triggers and heals them, right? And the 4-piece is basically when somebody is shielded by any kind of shield, then you do 15% more healing to them. So that's actually pretty substantial. This is my talent utility chart. Like, look at the dungeon utility chart and say, okay, which do I need to take, you know? Okay, so this is my priest side of the talent tree flex points graphic. So there is one error on here that I just realized, is that Shadow Word Death should be the second Shadow Word Death, like reset should be taken, and uh, this should be orange. So this would be blue to flex out of that and into here. So for Theater of Pain, you wanted a Disease Dispel. For Workshop, Cinderbrew, and Priory, I think it's good to take Mind Control. And I like to flex out of Leap of Faith a lot of the time, because what you can do is you can take Void Tendrils and not take Leap of Faith, and Void Tendrils allows you to get Power Infusion and the Sanguine Teachings for just one talent point, as opposed to you would need two if you used Mind Control and Leap of Faith. Oh, and then let me explain. In Cinderbrew, the Yes Men have this ability called Field Promotion. So when they die, they're gonna buff their friends, right? So you can mind control as long as one of them hasn't died yet. So what you do is you like wait for the first Yes Man to be at like 10%, then you mind control the second one, and then you re-mind control him until the third and the fourth one are dead. What that allows you to do is it doesn't the third and the fourth one will not get the field promotion, and it's actually a pretty decent time save. But you got to make sure that you don't let your guy who you mind controlled be unmind controlled when one of them dies. Otherwise, you won't be able to remind control them, because you cannot mind control them when they have the field promotion buff. Workshop, I have a video on this. Just look up the guide. It's Workshop Defender. You mind control him. And prior to the Sacred Flame to mind control, I would say you mind control the Devout Priest here. So some groups do pull 6 like all together, and if you're doing it all together, I would definitely mind control one of them. If you're doing it separate, you know, you might end up not doing that. And then the last flex talent is in Rookery, and last boss you just want to have extra range, so that's pretty nice to have. Okay, so this is my main talent build for like basically everything, like except for Dark Flame Cleft. That's the only one I'm using something different on. And occasionally, like I've tried dropping the Waste No Time and picking up the Shadow Word Pain just for like damage, because Shadow Word Pain oftentimes is my highest damage. So like if I could, you know, drop this and pick these up, that's a lot of damage, you know. And sometimes it's fun to do a little more damage, so your friends think you're really good at the game if you do high damage, right? One notable difference is I don't take Painful Punishment. I'd much rather have like a second point into Borrowed Time and just refresh my Shadow Word Pain on the boss like occasionally. And then this is my Dark Flame Cleft build. So you see we just drop the 2 Shadow Word Pain talents and pick up extra healing during Shadow Fiend. Like the reasoning behind that is Candle King is the whole dungeon. If you can heal Candle King, you can win. And having like extra Shadow Word Pain spread when you cast Penance is nice, but that doesn't help you on Candle King. So may as well have your Shadow Fiend be very, very strong, because all your spells turn to shadow spells when you have Shadow Fiend out. Okay, so on the topic of Shadow Fiend, I want to talk about Inescapable Torment and Shadow Covenant. So when you use Shadow Fiend, you're going to go into Shadow Covenant, and that makes your penance empowered to be called Dark Reprimand. Inescapable Torment extends the duration of your Dark Reprimand ability, or of the Shadow Covenant. So because it increases the duration of Shadow Fiend, it's extending Shadow Covenant as well. So it's very, very powerful. And it's for 0.7 seconds every time you cast a Mind Blast, a Penance, or a Shadow Word Death. So like going into a poll, what you could be doing is, okay, so you Radiance, you go a couple, well, you can do 3 atonements, a penance, Shadow Word Pain, then we'll go Shadow Fiend, Mind Blast, and you know, first penance I'll do without using Insight, and second penance, and you see my Shadow Pain is just getting extended, and if you do a good job, you should be able to get 2 Mind Blasts in a single cycle, right? So it's pretty important. Like, the key thing I did at the start of that cycle was I did Mind Blast and Shadow Word Death, and then I went into penancing. So you should probably Mind Blast, penance, then Shadow Word Death, then if you're gonna like wait on your insights. But the reason I a lot of times will go Mind Blast, Shadow Word Death, and then penance is because I might be using insight on those next 3 penance. So like, it's just kind of like you want to get the Shadow Word Death on cooldown and get that 0.7 seconds extra duration, and also it's doing big damage because Inescapable Torment does big damage. Like, let's go back and see what my damage was. 43% of my damage was Inescapable Torment. So that's quite a lot of damage, and your overall will thank you if you do that. Okay, so the next talent I wanted to talk about is Wheel and Woe and Twin Sight. So Wheel and Woe makes your penance bolts. So right here you see if I cast penance on my penance tracker, it's got 7 right here. So that means that I have 7 stacks of Wheel and Woe. You can see right here, 7 stacks. So my next Power Word Shield is empowered. And the way Twin Sight works is when you cast an offensive penance, you see it's shooting a penance bolt at this friendly target and also shooting a penance bolt at the enemy. So that's giving me 7 penance bolts cast per cast of penance. And that's assuming you're not using Harsh Discipline, which many people might do. Like, it's pretty common. I see people drop Blaze of Light and take Harsh Discipline. It's somewhat common that I see people not take Inescapable Torment and they take Blaze of Light. But I think you should just like while you're learning, I think this is a good build, but otherwise, you know, Inescapable Torment I think is just superior in general. Oh, the last thing I wanted to talk about is Binding Heals. So this spell, Flash Heal healing, is like replicated on yourself. So if I heal someone else, this person, they get atonement for 18 seconds and I get atonement for 18 seconds. So like when you're applying atonements to the group, you'll be like Power Word Shield one guy, then you'll renew a couple people, and then you can cast Flash Heal on the 3rd guy, and all of a sudden you go from 3 to 5 atonements with just one single cast. So that's kind of what you want to think about in terms of Flash Heal. Like, Flash Heal is a good spot healing tool, but it also is good for applying atonement to 2 people at once. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the core healing abilities and how do you apply atonements. So Flash Heal and Power Word Shield are 18 seconds of atonement. It's 22 seconds if you're talented into Indemnity, but most priests in Mythic Plus do not talent into this spell. Like, I see some priests not even taking this, and like they go full into other stuff, but I feel like if you don't have one of these 2 talents, like, you could pick your poison, choose whichever one you want, but that's why this smite up here shows 3 seconds atonement duration. Every time you cast it, it's 3 seconds of atonement. And then Power Word Radiance is 11 or 12 seconds, depending on if you have Enduring Luminance, which most people are using Enduring Luminance. Like 99% of people are using Enduring Luminance. It just makes your it's just such a faster cast. Like, it's so fast. Like, it's a 1 second cast to cast Radiance with Enduring Luminance, so it's so good. Anyway, so a lot of people like don't have a good idea of how long are these atonements gonna last. Like, you can just use Power Word Radiance right before like basically any of the AoE things. Like, if you don't have to use a Flash Heal or a heal. Like, right before Big Mama is about to use her thing, you can use Radiance, and if you're talented into Harsh Discipline, then you'll get, you know, an extra penance bolt for that overlap, right? Okay, so core damaging abilities. So I just want to like show this, and I don't really want to go too deep into it. Like, your Mind Blast applies Schism, and that increases the damage you do to that target for 10% for 9 seconds. So like, when you do cast your Mind Blast, you want to make sure that you don't like change targets. Like you see this debuff right here, it's giving you 10% more damage, which is actually 10% more healing. Shadow Word Death, I use this as like kind of a movement spell. Like I use it during Shadow Fiend, and then I also use it during movement. And I also use Shadow Word Pain as a movement spell. Penance should be kept on cooldown virtually all the time. You should either be casting it on an enemy with Shadow Word Pain on them, or you should be casting it on a friend to do friendly healing. It is more healing to heal the person with a defensive penance, and you still get a little bit of atonement out of it. And another slight benefit, you see right here, this guy has inspiration, which is 5% reduced physical damage. So when you crit with a penance heal, it's going to give them that 5% physical DR. So the basic rotation, trying to make it as basic as I can. Your number one priority, basically always and forever, is maybe number one, number two, number three are all keep your penance and power word shield on cooldown. We talked about wheel and woe and the interaction there, but you penance, you power word shield. You don't want to smite because your wheel and woe will be consumed by smite, and it's not gonna like like if you're on a single target boss fight and the boss isn't doing any damage, then sure, smite. But in like 85-95% of times, like you're gonna just want to use power word shield on a target who doesn't have power word shield. Like you always want to go into every single like big AoE. You should have at least 2, if not 3, big power word shields on the target going into an AoE phase. And what that allows you to do is actually be able to heal through the entire AoE phase because they have extra health. Like I see priests playing and they'll penance and then they'll smite, consuming their stacks of wheel and woe just to do that moderate amount of extra damage. And you know, it's not safe. You don't have a kick as a priest. Your job as a priest is to shield people. You penance, you shield. You penance, you shield. And now we're going to talk about what you do in between. So in between, while penance and power word shield are on cooldown, you have about 4 seconds, right? So you got a couple options. Is somebody very low still, and penance, the like defensive penance I just cast on them is not enough? If that's the case, you're gonna want to spot heal with a flash heal. So I penance myself, I power word shield them, they are still very low. You know, I can spot heal a couple times with a flash heal, go back into penance, power word shield. You know, maybe I have to cast a radiance to get everyone atonement and all that jazz, right? So penance and power word shield, number one priority. After that, you want to spot heal with flash heal. After that, you want to make sure you have atonement on everyone. But if somebody is like extremely low, it's more important to spot heal this extremely low person, and it might not be the person you just penanced and power word shielded. So, you know, you can spot heal them, get them back up, make the health frames kind of even. If everyone has close to the same amount of health, then you like should be atonement healing, like with smite and stuff, right? But if somebody's really low, you should be penancing, powered shielding them, or flash healing them. So after you have all your atonements up, then it's pretty good practice to use Shadow Word Pain. Like if it's like a 5 target pull, you know, you might just go into the pull, do 2 Shadow Word Pains and then penance, and then you just are going to be refreshing your Shadow Word Pains through penance, right? So like on a small target count pull, I wouldn't recommend using Shadow Word Pain spread manually. But, you know, let's say it's a 10-pack pull. You know, you can, like, a lot of times the damage, like, that you have to heal doesn't happen for the first, like, 8 or 10 seconds of the pull. So you have, like, 8 or 10 seconds, so you can Shadow Word Pain someone, Power Word Shield, go back, do a couple Shadow Word Pains, and then you penance a second time, Power Word Shield someone else, and then it's like, okay, damage is coming, so I'm going to Power Word Radiance, I'm going to Mind Blast, okay, I guess I'll Shadow Fiend, and now I'll go into doing damage. Next slide, which is Premonition Rotation. There's really like 3 kind of rotations I think about when I'm using Penance, or Premonition of Insight. So when I'm thinking about Premonition of Insight, I'm thinking, when do I want my big power? And a lot of times you'll just do like a similar to a raid setup where you'll go your Radiance, and then you would Evangelism and Raid, right? But in this case, you just Shadow Fiend, and I actually have my Fade macroed into Shadow Fiend. So every time I cast Shadow Fiend, it's going to automatically fade, which is very nice because you don't want to like get to the point where you're using Insight and then fade during Insight. You're going to waste a Penance cast because Insight reduces the cooldown on your next 3 casts, and so it's going to go on fade, and that's not really ideal for anyone. So you Shadow Fiend, Mind Blast, Shadow. I like to Shadow Fiend and then Shadow Word Death just to get that little extra inescapable torment damage. If you don't have time, skip this step. So you like say you're really low on time, you'd Shadow Fiend, Mind Blast, Insight, and then go into Penance or Power Word Shield. And there's kind of 2 different ways to think about Insight. Like if it's AoE damage that's the exact same amount of damage to every single person in the group, you might want to go all penances because that's going to spread your Shadow Word pains and it's just going to be all penances. But if it's like uneven damage, like during a trash pack, let's say there's AoE, but there's also the threat of single target damage, you would go Radiance, Shadow Fiend, Shadow Word Death. Make sure I have Shadow Pain up. So I'll Penance here, Power Word Shield, and maybe I'll apply a couple of atonements or something. Then I'll Radiance, then I'll Insight, I'll go Penance, Shield, Penance, Shield, Penance. You know, and like if it's like really uneven damage, what you can do is you can Defensive Penance and then Shield, and then Defensive Penance and then Shield. Like during heavy AoE, like on Big Mama for example, a lot of times I'll do a Defensive Penances only. So I'll Defensive Penance like the Moonkin, then I'll Shield the Mage, then I'll Defensive Penance the Moonkin again, then I'll Shield the Moonkin, then I'll Defensive Penance the Mage, then I'll like Shield the Mage, you know. So like rotating between Penance and Power Word Shield is pretty solid during Premonition. However, it is a lot more damage if you're using Inescapable Torment to just go Penance, 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 because that's just going to blast the target with all these penances, and every single time you penance, your Inescapable Torment is going to do a whole bunch of damage, like to 5 targets. So it's like while you're learning, I would probably just in general stick with this top rotation where you go Insight, Penance, Shield, Penance, Shield, Penance, Shield, right? After you're kind of finished learning and you're becoming a little more comfortable with the spec, you're going to understand when you're able to just go Penance, 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 Penance. And that's pretty nice. So the third rotation, if you want to call it that, is I call it the extra penance rotation. So I kind of did that the first time, but so I'll cast Power Word Radiance, I'll cast Shadow Fiend, Mind Blast, Shadow Word Death, Penance, and I'm doing this like way before the next time damage is coming out. So then I would cast Penance like 4 times in a row with the Insight. That time I casted Solace there, right? But imagine I just casted Insight and like it's the early Shadow Fiend. So you would do this like 8 seconds before the damage is coming, and you'll still have your Shadow Fiend up for the entire damage rotation, so long as you like cast your Shadow Word Death at the beginning, and then you can cast a second Shadow Word Death over here. Yeah, that's kind of how I think about Premonition, and it is the most complicated part of the class. Like the rotational spells we just covered, like this is a pretty simple rotation. Pretty basic. This is pretty complicated. You got like a cooldown, you got Shadow Word Death to try to extend the duration of your Shadow Fiend, and like, a lot of times you'll skip this step, right? But then you have all like the Insight is a little bit confusing, because if you don't use Insight at the correct time, let's say you used Insight before Mind Blast, you're going to waste one of your penances or power word shields. Don't be discouraged if you're struggling with the Premonition. It is very challenging and you'll figure it out eventually. Okay, so I wanted to talk about the healing cooldowns priority list. So I like to pair Shadow Fiend with Insight of one kind. So either you'll have Clairvoyance with Shadow Fiend, so you'll go Mind Blast, Shadow Fiend, Clairvoyance, then you can go with your 4 penances or whatever. You know, something like that. And look, we're at 1.2 million damage. So either pair Clairvoyance or Insight with Shadow Fiend. That's kind of how I like to do it. And I also have my Trinket paired with Shadow Fiend as well. So House of Cards is what I'm using with Shadow Fiend. So because I'm using House of Cards and Shadow Fiend, like, that is a very, very strong amount of healing. And so a lot of times I save my next Premonition, which is Premonition of Piety, for like that extra healing bonus. I use it separated from that because I don't want to put all my eggs in the Shadow Fiend basket. Then the next overlap comes. Let's say that it's the Birds and Rookery. The next Bird Storm comes and I have nothing for it, right? Next is Power Word Barrier. So like if I'm fighting the Birds and Rookery, the first set of lightnings on the birds, I'm going to use Shadow Fiend and Insight. Second set, I might use Piety and Ultimate Penitence. The third set, by the third set of Thunderstorms, your group might have already used all their defensives, right? So I might use Power Word Barrier, and then if I'm really in trouble, I'll use Evangelism. But what I like to do is I like to save Evangelism for an emergency. I like to plan ahead, like Shadow Fiend, Piety, Barrier, Ultimate Penitence. I like to plan ahead with all 4 of these cooldowns, but Evangelism is so powerful for recovery. Like, it heals for like so freaking much when you use it. It like extends the duration of atonement, but the big change that they did this patch, you might not be aware of this, is it heals so much. So like if every single person is at like 40%, it's going to take every single person to like 80 or 90%. If one person is at 10% health and you use Evangelism, it's going to give all that healing to that one person, and it's going to heal them really, really big. Like, it's actually kind of a smart heal. It says like split evenly among them, but it's lying. It's a smart heal. It's going to heal all the same, like that most injured target is going to get the most healing. So that's kind of the way I think of my cooldowns. And one other thing I needed to talk about is Ultimate Penitence. So like going into Ultimate Penitence, like if I'm like, okay, the next bird AoE is coming, so I can get 2 penances out before this next bird AoE. So I'm 1 second on cooldown on Power Word Shield. During those 2 Power Word Shields that I'm trying to get out before the AoE, I want to use those on other people because I'm planning on using Ultimate Penitence. And Ultimate Penitence gives you a massive shield. While ascended, gain a shield for 100% of your health. So you do not need a Power Word Shield while you're using Ultimate Penitence. You need your friends to have a shield because Ultimate Penitence, it is a strong heal, but it is not the strongest heal. So you'll go into Ultimate Penitence, you'll say Power Word Radiance, Mind Blast, maybe you Power Word Shield a friendly target, and then you go Ultimate Penitence. So you have a massive, massive shield on yourself, and you don't need the Power Word Shield. You need your friends to have the Power Word Shield. Because what's going to happen if you're in the middle of Ultimate Penitence and someone's about to die, you interrupt that Ultimate Penitence. You cast a Power Word Shield on that person who's about to die and forego the rest of your Ultimate Penitence healing. It is more important to interrupt your Ultimate Penitence and save someone from death than it is to get the extra healing out there. Like, I really don't like doing that very often, but maybe 5 or 10% of the time I use an Ultimate Penitence, I have to interrupt it early to save someone's life. Most of the time, you want to be using pain suppression on the tank, like, depending on how skilled the tank is. Some tanks require every single pain suppression to go to them, and that just makes your job 10 times harder. Sometimes you're in a very, very difficult pull, like let's say first pull of Cinderbrew, you might need one of your 2 pain suppressions to go on somebody who's getting a chair thrown at them. Because like you can have throw chair plus Cinder Bomb or whatever, plus vent flames on all going out damaging the same person, and without pain suppressing that person, they're just gonna die. So it's like sometimes you gotta rely on the tank to save himself. And like one trick is if you're going into a pole, uh, like before the pole, you can like power shield or you can like penance yourself on the way to the pole, and then you can give the tank a power shield going into the pole. And then once the pole starts, you can penance again and then give the tank the second power shield. And if you do it again and give the tank the third power shield, you might be able to save that penance, because a lot of tanks need like penance, or they need pain suppression when they're gathering. And you know, sometimes you can just penance heal, defensive penance on the tank, power word shield, defensive penance on the tank, power word shield. And if they're a good tank, that's enough where they don't need that pain suppression at the beginning of the pull, and you can save that resource for, you know, a damage dealer. Maybe you have a really squishy Moonkin who doesn't ever go bear form in your group. But I mean, every time the tank asks for it, and on very large pulls, I would recommend pain suppression on the tank, you know, just generally. But you don't need to give every single pain suppression to the tank. Like probably 60 or 70% of them probably should go to the tank. But like there's 30% of the time you just your cooldowns are not going to be enough. And so if you're running out of cooldowns and you need something, like say you're going into a big AoE, you can pain suppression yourself, or pain suppression like the Moonkin or the like a shaman or something like that, someone pretty squishy, and that should be enough. Okay, so next we're going to talk about the Premonition Cycle. So Premonition is a pretty complicated ability, but it's not as complicated as you might think. So I have a weak aura for Premonition, and it looks like this at the bottom. And it shows you which cooldown is active and which cooldown is next. Like we can go into the game, I have a cooldown reduction ready, so I have Insight ready, so I can, you know, Shadow Fiend, Insight, and do my penance things, right? And now it says I have Piety next, and I have Solace coming up in 35 seconds. So the cycle goes Insight, Piety, Solace, Clairvoyance. But when I was first learning, like, I needed a little bit of guidance, so I knew what's the current thing that's ready, and also what's next. Because you can plan ahead that way, and you'll learn the rotation a bit better. So I have a link in the description to my it's got my macros, and it also has a link to this week aura. It's in a Word document. You got to download it from there, but it's very strong to be able to know what your next premonition is. So I basically always try to pair Shadow Fiend with either Insight or Clairvoyance, just because I like doing big damage. Like a lot of my parses on disc are like 95 or 90% parses, so I'm doing more damage than 90% of people, and I think it's because I'm so diligent about my inescapable torment. I've really started to get a lot better where I'm using like 3 or 4 penances with Insight instead of using penance powered shield. I'll use like 4 penances in a row a lot of the time, and still like keep people alive, like without the nagging need to like, oh, I need to just keep shields on everyone all the time. That is very good, and every time you penance you want to be using a shield, but sometimes you just want to do big AoE damage, and you can do like 1.2 million or 1.5 million on a pull when you're using Inescapable Torment properly. We already talked about Piety, so it just makes you get 20% more healing and 70% overhealing. So like one thing about Piety is it's about overhealing. So I like to power word shield myself like a lot when I'm using Piety, because that means I'm going to be overhealing. Basically every single heal that I cast on myself with Atonement is going to be overhealing, and that 70% of that Atonement is going to be transferred. So it's like I'm actually healing double within my Atonement during that Piety window while I have Power Word Shield. And Premonition of Solace, you don't really need to worry about it too much. Like, just use it before you cast a Power Word Shield or something like that, and you'll be fine. Okay, so mana management. So in general, you shouldn't be running into mana problems as a Disc Priest. I think the number one issue that you might be running into is you might be casting Flash Heal too often. So if you are like at 50% mana or lower and you think you need to start conserving mana, try not to cast Flash Heal as often. If you are like a chronic mana runner outer, use Mana Potion on cooldown. I personally run out of mana a lot of times when I don't take Throes of Pain 2 stacks. Like Throes of Pain 1 stack, I run out of mana kinda sometimes. With 2 stacks of Throes of Pain, I feel like I don't run out of mana very often. And then there's one other mana talent called Shield Discipline. When your powered shield gets absorbed, you get 0.5% of mana back. So between those two spells, Throes of Pain and Shield Discipline, you should generally not be running out of mana. But if you are, add your mana potions on cooldown and you should be good to go. Okay, so macros. So there's basically one macro that is kind of essential as a Disc Priest because you don't want to clip your penances. And it is a no channeling macro. So I have it macroed into Smite, I have it macroed into Shadow Word Death, I have it macroed into Mind Blast. So when I'm casting Shadow Word Pain, or when I'm casting Penance, you see my Smite just becomes uncastable. So I cannot cast Smite while I'm casting Penance. I think that's really the only mandatory macro I'd have as a Disc Priest. All of these weak auras are my own weak auras. I'm still having a bug where it's giving me double countdown on my spells. I think it's a different thing that's giving me that, but you know, if you want my weak auras, post in the comments. I'll try to add them, but a lot of people don't like my weak auras, so I mean, get a weak aura pack that you like and you'll be fine. Anyways, thanks for the watching.